Hey there, guys, and welcome to Behind the Crypto Podcast. I'm Mike Graham, and I'm your guide and host as we have some amazing conversations with builders, founders making waves in the crypto and Web3 space. And today we have Alexander, aka Rex, from Driven Labo. Alex or Rex, great to have you with us, brother.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. We've had the pleasure of kind of following each other on X or Twitter as they call it, and got to learn a little bit about you and what you're building. But for the guys, just getting to know you, tell us a little bit about you, maybe even how you got the nickname from Alexander to Rex. But
Mhm.
yeah, give us a little bit about Rex.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Driven Labo. We're a automotive Web3 product development studio. So we're primarily right now working on bringing uh, fractional ownership of rare collector cars to market, so an RWA play. But ultimately, our objective is to really bring the global car culture on chain. So we can get a little bit more into that here in a bit, I'm sure. But yeah, I've just kind of come from a background of tech and product development. I've been a designer and developer for a long time, mostly on like the UI UX side of things. Also built numerous brands over my 2 decades of working in sort of the tech industry. And yeah, just fell in love with Web3 and decided to go full bore building in this space. Starting around 2019, I went full time in Web3.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you've been in the space a while, almost an OG, right? Almost an OG in the
Yeah, yeah.
space.
Well, I've been into crypto since 2013. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013 and
Wow.
just was really interested in the technology and the financial side of it. So
Okay.
one of my various passions is economics. And I kind of came from like the hard money Austrian economics side of things. And when Bitcoin came out, I was like, oh, this is interesting. So, started dabbling and didn't become like super like hardcore into crypto until maybe 2016 when I saw NFTs start to become a thing. Like I thought, okay, cool, currencies, I understand this,
Mm.
it'll have its place in the future. But when I saw NFTs come out, it kind of blew my mind because I saw all of the various things that you could do, not just
Mm.
with NFTs, but that sort of like like lit a spark, and really just sort of went from there and became obsessed with blockchain.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that, you kind of, like you said, you've been working in the space in 2019, but you had your first experience or exposure way back in 2013, right? To
Mhm.
the OG, to Bitcoin. And tell us a little bit about what you're building with the project with Driven. What are you guys doing? I love the concept that you said, bringing the car culture to Web3,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
that's a beautiful concept. So tell us a little bit more about your project, because I mean, you've kind of told us a little bit about how you got into the crypto space with Web3, with crypto, but what took you from getting into the space to then deciding, ooh, okay, I now want to build my project. And
Mhm.
what is it that you guys are building?
Yeah, so I mean, as I mentioned before, I have numerous passions. Another one of it, probably my biggest passion for my entire life, has been cars and motorsports. So just came was brought up in a big automotive family, and so I'd always kind of done that on the side, from like racing and building cars and just being in touch with the car culture. And then around 2019, I was working as a VP of brand and UI UX for a startup Web3 social network.
Mm,
Uh, and that ended probably around 2022. And I was like, well, I don't want to leave this space. I'm in this for the long run because this is where I
mm,
want to, set some roots down for my career. So what can I do next? Something that really like, what's my ikigai, as they say, the combination of my passions. And I was like, well, obviously cars and crypto are it. So um, I set out to create Driven Labo as just a product development studio and really quickly honed in on something that I thought would really be of value. When I first got into NFTs, one of the things that really struck me about it is I thought they would be a great way to authenticate like real world items on chain and not just
Hmm.
simply existing as digital assets, but tying it into to the real world. And at the time, I started playing with my own project, which never really got off the ground, but I was doing um, like high end limited edition goods. So, like for example, I'm really into watches, so I created a prototype of my first watch that I put on chain, and I called them digital goods, and never really took off, but it ended up being kind of like that seed that was planted, and that grew into what we're doing at Driven Labo, which is to uh, offer fractional ownership of ultra rare investment grade vehicles. So the types of cars that the culture are really passionate about, but the average person would never be able to afford in their wildest dreams, or most wouldn't be able to afford. And
Hmm.
so now creating or using blockchain as a mechanism to allow people to become part of a community of co-owners to share in the ownership of, like, for example, the first car that we're offering on our platform is Paul Walker's 1999 Ferrari 360 Modena.
I think I saw that on your X and I was like,
Mhm.
that is so freaking cool, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is
really a
just
great one to
that
start
is
with.
spectacular. I mean, I'd love to know how even you got your hands on that because that's just
Mhm.
so rare, right? That
Yeah,
is
I mean it's one of a kind, honestly, not just
literally,
because
literally.
yeah, not just because Paul Walker owned it, but he also uh, customized it to be what he wanted. So it's kind of like almost de facto like the Paul Walker edition, one of one, right?
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we ended up getting that car from one of our investors, our largest investor early on, came in and loved what we were doing. He's actually retired now, but a pro NFL player, and has a amazing car collection, and saw what we were doing and offered the Ferrari as part of his investment in joining the company. So yeah, I mean that really worked out. That was amazing. But yeah, really just kind of taking it from there as that being our flagship, offering something, not just uh, things that are out of reach for the average person, but also creating communities around it. So you're part of like kind of a close-knit community of co-owners who can determine, what to do with the car, maybe how many miles are put on it per year, to like vote on um, whether to take it to shows or rent it out to a movie studio or a musician to feature in their music videos, and also creating revenue from the car as well. We look at each individual car as its own business in a sense.
Hmm.
And so you're buying into a business that holds that car on its balance sheet. And so it's not just an asset that's sitting away in um, under a cover in a garage somewhere. That asset's actually being put to use to generate revenue. So there's an opportunity to get exposure to the price appreciation of the underlying asset, but also to generate revenue and profit share over time through the actions of your little close-knit community of co-owners.
That's so exciting. And you know what I love about what you guys are building, Rex? When you look at the RWA narrative, there's some projects that are the RWAs maybe as a narrative, but when you look at the project, there's no elements of real world asset really, right?
Mhm.
But I think what you guys are doing, there's a legit tangible connection between the real world asset and bringing that asset on chain, right?
Mhm.
Which is so exciting. I mean, listen, tell us a little bit about in terms of when we think about the goals with Driven, when we think about perhaps the goals that you might have within crypto or Web3. What are some of the things you guys are trying to achieve within perhaps with the project, but also within the crypto space?
Mhm. Well, as I mentioned before, our goal is to bring the global car culture on chain, and I
Mm,
think there are so many applications for blockchain technology to solve problems in I mean, in every sector, honestly, but you know, I really know the car culture, so I'm seeing ways that we can use it to you know, provide value and create a more close-knit community, but also to, you know, add that financial element of you know, alternative investments, let's say.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, the car culture around the world is huge. It's millions of people, you know,
true.
and the vast majority are just not on chain, right? So we're putting together, the way I describe it is basically like an everything app for car lovers.
Hmm.
And at the core is this RWA side, so you can, you know, um, uh, get access to these rare vehicles, but you know, we're also going to be incorporating a system for it's the best way of putting it. Um, so in the car world, registries are really popular. So
Mm,
if you own a relatively rare car, guaranteed that there's a website out there where you can register your car and
mm,
see, um, you know, like everybody who owns them, not everybody, but everybody who registers. And
yes.
you know, there's a lot of value in being part of a digital registry. So we're
Hmm.
bringing that to the world of blockchain. A good
Mm,
example would be so my personal car is relatively rare. It's a 97 Nissan 240SX. In the US, there was only about 3,500 of them made between the 2 years that this car existed. So, you know, only 7,000 in the US.
wow.
Vast majority of them were turned into race cars or went through 10 owners and are basically undrivable. And so I was like, it'd be really awesome to have a system where you can register your car on chain and kind of like 23andMe, like as you submit your DNA and the more details that they get in from other people that are submitting, the more accurate the details of your heritage are improve. Well, in this
Hmm.
case, you know, if you register your car on chain, the more people that start to do it, you can actually get kind of like going back to NFT rarities. You have the
Yeah.
different traits. Well, you can see not only how many of this car is left, you know, on the road that are still running and driving, but how rare is my particular configuration of my car, you know,
Wow.
being pearl
And
white,
it's all on chain
five
then.
speed. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, okay, so uh, it may actually be that my car is only one of 50 left
Mm,
in existence,
hmm.
and that can become something that's may even drive the value up of those cars as they become registered because you get a better picture of just how rare that car is.
Yeah. And you get a
And
better
you,
understanding of the assets as well.
exactly, yeah.
That's
So
very
there's
good. I
kind of
love that.
a yeah, and our phase two is that self-served registration side of things. And we've got a number of other tools in the works. And we've got some things with AI and um, things that are going to help with uh, like car communities
Hmm.
to be able to you know, monetize their car community to make them more like little businesses where you can, you know, sell sponsorships and generate revenue all on chain. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that, Rex. And you know what I love? I love that you guys are literally, I've been talking to so many projects and builders and VCs and, people in the space about this, that really what builders and projects need to do is find a problem that exists in the real world, something in the real world, maybe the car world, and then
Mhm.
think of what do they need to improve and how can we use blockchain in order to facilitate those improvements and to fix those problems, right? And I love that that's kind of the angle you guys seem to have gone about it. You seem to have built the projects in that way. I mean, listen, one thing I want to ask you, maybe, out of curiosity, actually, if you
Mhm.
were to say, okay, because you've obviously built the projects over the last few years, you've got some solid assets under you. You mentioned the NFL star that's now an investor with you guys. You've obviously
Mhm.
built a very solid project, right? Very solid business. And congratulations, kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
What would you say are some of the three, maybe not three, but what would you say are just some of the key things that got you guys to this stage? You know, if you could just to share, because we're going to have some builders listening to this podcast, we're going to have some
Mhm.
founders listening. What would you say is like one, two, three things that, you know, Driven did quite nicely in order to get to this stage as an RWA play?
Yeah. Honestly, I think one of the things that's really important that a lot of people that are building in Web3 don't have when they set out is patience. Um,
Mm,
we knew that we were wading into kind of some murky waters of, how does this look from a legal standpoint, or how do
mm-hmm,
we remain compliant? And luckily,
mm,
within the last year, things in the US particularly have become a little bit more clear and a little
mm-hmm,
less scary, let's
mm,
say. So, we really spent our time looking at the different business structures and legal structures to
mm,
allow us to build this thing for the long term. We
mm-hmm,
could have very easily just sort of thrown out a token, said we have a Ferrari, and just, kind of gone at it fast and loose. But, inevitably we'd run into problems with, the regulators, or maybe our technology was not built for the long run. And ultimately, we wouldn't be able to achieve our goal. If we want to try and bring the global car culture on chain, that's a decade long venture right there. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. So I think patience is one of them. And when you start with a patient outlook, you're going to probably make better decisions. It's a kind of a general life rule of like, if you make decisions that are good for right now, they're probably going to bite you in the future. But if you make hard decisions that aren't easy now, they're probably going to set you up better in the future. So that's
mm.
been our approach. Let's see what else.
I mean, listen, Rex, that's fantastic. I think
Mhm,
that what you've just shared there is gold, right? Having patience in the space. And as you were saying, I was connecting to that so much, right? Because a lot of times I talk to builders, I talk to founders where you're like, okay, what's the business plan here? And it's exactly what you said. It's like, okay, we're going to have this token, we've got this product, but the product isn't really thought through. There's a lot of, broken windows, and it just doesn't, there's no longevity. And I think what you
mhm,
said, which really I connected with was, if the goal is to bring the global car culture on chain, that's not going to happen in like 6 months. That might not happen in 2 years. That might take 10 years in order
yeah.
to fulfill that goal, right? So thinking with that longevity is super important. Listen, I've got a couple of final questions for you, Rex, and
Mhm,
it's been I've really enjoyed listening to you. I've loved, learning more about what you guys are building, and I hope, the people listening and tuning in have as well. But in terms of the crypto space, there's been a lot of changes. We're seeing a big growth in RWAs. We're seeing the growth of now AI agents. Last year in summer, we had the whole meme summers.
mhm,
What is something in the space that you're seeing that you're quite bullish about? It could be RWAs, it could be something else,
mhm.
but what is the narrative in the crypto Web3 space that you're like, you know what? This is quite an exciting movement.
Yeah. I would say anything that really does solve real world problems or has a real world utility. Um, you know, the speculative stuff is fine. It's fun, like the Solana casino. Hey, we all kind of dabble in there. It's a lot of fun, but it's not really solving any problems, and it's ultimately probably not going to be what takes us to the mainstream. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
what I find really exciting are things like RWA and DPIN. The technological side of things that adds value to the real world, as opposed to being kind of like uh, uh, extracting that value from the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, RWA and DPIN are probably the things that I'm most excited about. They aren't always the most sexy, and they're not always the ones that are going to go 1000x. But I think that's also good because the average person isn't going to want to come in and start gambling. They're going to want to come into the Web3 space and see like who are the legit players, what are the ones solving real world problems. and put their money behind those. So
Mhm. That's
it's
very
my
true. That's very
Mhm.
true, right? And the other thing is, I think with when you have 1,000 X's all the time, it's just not sustainable.
No.
Long-term longevity and sustainability, very hard, right? Very hard if you're always looking for 1,000X. Listen, this has been beautiful, X. You've shared some real alpha. We've gone into kind of the bonnet, I was going to say, of Driven Labo. I always ask at the end for the builders, to maybe share with the audience, maybe a quote or some kind of motivational quote that you might have, or perhaps a concept or an idea or a tip for people building, for project founders building in the space. So it's up to you. It could be like
Mhm.
a quote that you like, or it could be maybe a piece of advice, whichever one you'd rather go for.
Hmm. That's a really good question. It's funny. I kind of collect quotes. I just things that I can kind of refer back to throughout my life, and now all of a sudden I'm having a hard time coming up with a really good one for the situation. Um, let's see. I would say you might need to edit this part out while I'm thinking. Um,
Or it could be a piece of advice. It could be a piece
yeah.
of advice. You guys have been building for a while. It doesn't need to
Mhm.
just be a quote.
Sure, sure. Um, yeah, I mean, the honestly, the best advice I could give for builders would be just build it right. Here's a good one. It's not a quote by anyone in particular, but it's one that is used. It's more of a like a phrase used with car builders is measure twice, cut once.
Hmm.
So you always want to make sure what you're doing is done correctly. And when you make shortcuts, then you're building in um, failure points to your business.
Mm-hmm.
So take the time, build it right, don't rush it. Measure twice, cut once, make sure
Measure
everything's
twice,
solid.
measure twice and cut once. I
Hmm.
love that. I love that. I love that. Rex, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing so much about what you guys are doing and the insights. Guys, this has been Rex from Driven Labo. And Rex, just before we wrap up, if the guys want to follow you, what's your Twitter handle? What's the best handle to follow the project or to follow you on that?
Yeah, follow Driven Labo, DRVN LABO on X. We also have our ecosystem token, which is relaunching very soon. That's called the Buster token. So you can find that at Based Buster, Buster, coin. And then you can follow me personally. It's Rex, REXT underscore racer, Rex Racer. And if I can just give one more quick call to action, yeah, go and check us out at drivenlabo.xyz, drvnlabo.xyz, and you'll find the links to everything that we're doing there. We've got a few different divisions to our business, including our app, which is currently in early beta called Driven Vehicles, which you can see here on my hat. So yeah, that's my
I,
plug.
I love that, Rex. I love that. Thank you so much. Guys, this has been Rex from Driven Labo. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Cheers and bye for now.